Hey, what's up, guys? Thought I'd do another video. I want to talk about something that I'm seeing a lot on the YouTube Wonderland, and that is, and this is especially people that I'm noticing a lot of people from out of state, out of California, are addressing this topic about the controversy between blacks and Latinos, and especially in Southern California. And sorry about that. And what I wanted, my message is to those who are out of state who are watching this and hearing about all the controversy between blacks and Latinos in California. A lot of it is hype. And some of the YouTubers that are out of state that have made videos that are talking about this controversy in Southern California between blacks and Latinos, or even just California in general. And my message to them would be this: don't believe the hype. Most people in California do not care about this issue in terms of the racial tension, the racial prejudice. Most people in California don't care about the what's going on. Most people in California, you know what they're worried about? They're worried about their next paycheck. They're worried how they're going to feed their family with the inflation, the gas prices. That's what they're worried about. Most people in California, black, Latino, white, Asian, don't care about the whole racial issue. Okay? Because in everyday life, in my everyday travels, I'm seeing people get along, of different racial backgrounds. So my message to those who are out of state, who are making videos, that there's going to be this race war in California between blacks and Latinos, that's nonsense. There will not be one. Why? Because and this is a message to those blacks, most Latinos in California aren't racist. I mean, they don't care. That's a certain segment of the population. But most Latinos in California, they're just trying to live life, regular citizens. The population of gang organizations is really small compared to the rest of the population. And, even in my job, it's very, you have different races there and everybody gets along. I mean, if we don't get along, it's because of just, you don't like the way someone works. So there will not be a racial war in California. Now, there's a lot of people on YouTube that when I watch them, it seems like they're trying to stir the pot, right? And I won't mention no names. They're trying to stir the pot. And it's this machismo, this pride that starts rising to the surface. My people are this, your people are that, your people are this, my people are that. And for me, as a Christian, I have the fortunate doctrine that says there is neither Judean nor Greek in the church. We are all one in Christ Jesus. So for me, my brothers and sisters have the name of Christ attached to them, regardless if they're Samoan, Filipino, Puerto Rican, Mexican, white, black, Filipino. When I was in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, it was just me, some other white guy, but everybody was from either Palau, Burma, Thailand, and man, we all got along great. So my message to those who are out of state who have made videos and are talking about the California situation between blacks and Latinos, my message to you would be: don't believe the hype, because most people here pretty much get along. They're worried about their own families and how to feed them and how to deal with the inflation and a lot of the stuff that's going on in California, the drug epidemic, which hits everybody, homelessness. That's what people in California are worried about. People that are conservative or love God. I'm not a conservative, but I love God and I love my country of what it used to be. That's why I have this flag here representing. I was using my laptop. I have this flag here, and then my Celtic nation right there. But that's what most people who love God, and yes, I love the Constitutional Republic of America, but what it once was, not what it is now, the global the global homogenous agenda that they have. And so again, that's what people in California are concerned of. The incessant promotion of the LGBT movement, drag queen story hour. That's what we need to be concerned about. Not about, which race reigns supreme, which culture is better, which culture is the original and stills. We need to be worried about the things that are going to affect our kids in 20 years, or affect our kids now and our grandkids in 20 years. And all this racial strife is just a distraction. Okay? It's just a distraction. That's all it is. It's to get people focused on an issue that at the end of the day, most people in California don't care about it, believe it or not. You want to know why things have changed? When I grew up in the 80s and 70s and early 90s, when I grew up in those times, the racial thing was real and it went beyond the gangs. But that was back then. Times have changed. And they changed a long time ago. And I saw this in the early 2000s, where the younger generation wasn't caring about those things. And how do I know this? Because when I raised my kids were all born in the 90s, and I raised them, they could care less about it. Why? Because I could care less about it when at the end of the day. But listen, I do believe you should love your culture. There's nothing wrong with that. It's healthy. It's natural, right? To love your culture no matter what race you are. What that shouldn't do, though, is extend to hate, extend to being hateful towards others. Okay? And I believe there's many on YouTube who are paid to promote this agenda of racial division, to promote this agenda of stirring the pot up for conflict. And so there's this guy, he's a Latino guy, I think he's from the East Coast or whatever. He made a video about there's a race war in California brewing. That's BS. It's not. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Because let me tell you what's happened in the neighborhoods in Los Angeles County. The demographics have changed. A lot of the neighborhoods have been gentrified, unfortunately. People are all throughout Southern California now spread out. You got a lot of people that grew up in Los Angeles County, live in the Inland Empire, the Palmdale, Lancaster. And most people, no matter what race you are, especially they just don't care. So don't believe the hype. There will be no race war between blacks and Latinos in California. It's just certain people stirring up the pot, whether it's for views or whether it's an agenda. And because let me tell you something, there's a lot of feds on YouTube, a lot of feds. And their whole job is to keep this culture of divide going, right? Because at the end of the day, a lot of that racial stuff that was really prevalent, I mean, LA started getting it in the early 90s. We got it like when the San Gabriel Valley, I mean, it's been since the 70s. But a lot of that has died out. And thank God, it's died out. So what a lot of YouTubers are doing is keeping the pot stirring, and they present this as though it is a mainstream situation. Because I'll be honest with you, I can't remember the last time I seen a conflict between a black and Latino in my daily travels over race. I can't remember it. Now, when I was growing up, it was different. It was all over, right? Schools and all that stuff, the streets. But I can't remember the last time I've seen something like that. Because when I go to the store, I see blacks, Latinos, whites, even Asian, and everybody's getting along just fine. Everybody's courteous. They'll let you go before them at the store. I go to the gym. People are courteous. Different races. People just shoot the breeze real quick. And so that's what my message would be to people out of state. Don't believe the hype. Most Latinos in California don't care about that. They're just trying to make a living. They're trying to do their job. They're trying to raise their family. They could care less about any attention. Good to see you, Texas 13 Made. Good morning. And so what's happening is there's people from out of state thinking that they're putting a jacket on all Latinos in Southern California like they have this racial stuff. They don't. They just don't care. Now, there's always going to be somewhat of an in-group preference, and that's even among Latinos, right? Because you'll have Latinos that are born in America, you have Latinos that they're freshly come over from whatever country, and there's even amongst them, there's going to be like this kind of difference, right? It doesn't mean they don't like each other. It's just there's this cultural divide. So that's not going to be a surprise when you even see it among Latinos and blacks, Latinos and whites, blacks and whites. There's people are naturally gonna mostly vibe with those of their same culture, but it doesn't mean you still can't. Like for me, as being a Christian, I've had very good brothers in Christ of all races. I mean, Tongan, like I mentioned before, Thailand, Burma, Palau, obviously black, white, Chicano, everything. So, and especially most of the Latinos that come from Mexico, Central America, the last thing they care about is California racial politics. They get in, they're about working, getting a job, raising their family. Exactly, Texas made. And so, yeah, a lot of it's these YouTubers that are promoting, trying to stir up this beef like it's something real. It's not, guys. It may be real in the prison system. That's a whole nother situation. And it may be real in certain neighborhoods. But if you go to LA, if someone was to come visit LA, you're not going to see that issue. You're just not, unless you go looking for it. You're not going to see that issue. And even when it was hot, even when this was a real issue in the 90s and 80s, I remember in my neighborhood, everybody got along. We had Latino, black, white, Asian, Filipino, Samoan, everybody got along. So even then, there was always, it was just a segment. But that's my message to those from out of state. Trust me, there will be no racial war between blacks and Latinos because most people don't care about that here. They really don't. It's a subculture. And from what I hear, I don't even pay attention too much, but from what I hear, it's getting better, which is good. Because when I walk the streets and where I live, and it could be grimy out here in the desert where I live, I mean, people pretty much get along. I mean, if they do have beef, it's over usually drugs or whatever it is. That's the really big problem in LA, drugs right now. And that's everywhere. Homelessness, drugs, the inflation. That's the main concern of Californians is how am I going to stay living here on the salary that I make with the gas prices, the food prices. You know, I don't have young kids anymore, but if I had young kids, I would not raise them in California. You know, that's the average everyday concern of a Californian, a Latino Californian, a black Californian, a white Californian, an Asian Californian, is how are you gonna be able to afford to continue living here? Because despite all the problems of California, it's a beautiful state in terms of nature. You know, mountains, what other place? Let's just take LA County, for example. What other city can you go to where in one day, and I used to drive Uber for a living, so I know this, you can be in the city, the beach, the desert, the suburbs, and the mountains all in one day. So I've lived in Florida. I lived in Miami Beach for about 8 months. I lived in New York City for about a year and a half. And I love New York City. At the time, I didn't really care too much about Miami, but I love New York. But California, to me, in terms of a place where you could do so many things, is the best state. But the problem is we have inflation, huge drug crisis. I mean, I can't afford to live in LA County anymore. I mean, just to get an apartment is super expensive, even in La Puente, where I grew up. So I had to come out to the desert just to be able to afford to live. And hopefully I will leave California soon. But I just want to make that message out there. And this is to those out-of-staters that get a wrong impression of Southern California, especially when it comes from the Latino side. Most people don't care because the ones that come over that are new from Mexico, Central America, they're just trying to make a living. They're new to the country. They're trying to get what they believe is the American dream. And the ones that have been here, they're just trying to live life. listen, most people today, young especially, they don't care. They're on their phones. They're on the internet. They social media, playing video games, living their life. Man, most people don't care about that stuff anymore. They just don't because it's just unrealistic to live life like that. Because you meet righteous people of all races, and and then plus with social media, people connect easier now with other cultures. So it's not as segregated as it used to be in California and Los Angeles. So don't believe the hype. There'll never be that. Beware of YouTubers that are always kind of buying into the strife. You got to ask yourself, because let me tell you something, there's a lot of feds on the internet, a lot of feds on the YouTube, and their sole express purpose is to cause division. And feds are known for representing themselves as being gang members, ex-gangbangers. Uh, they're known for representing themselves as Christian, Muslim, nationalists, whatever. Feds are known for doing that, and their sole purpose, or Antifa, is to cause strife. I would just say, if you see a YouTuber that's constantly talking about this Black Latino situation, they're stirring the pot. You got to question, what is the motivation? Because the reality, and I live in Southern California, the reality is, it's not like that at all. It's not like that at all. Like I said, I can't remember the last time I've seen in person a conflict between a Black and Latino over race. I can't remember. Now, when I was younger, saw it all the time. But that was then, this is now. And what I believe is this thing between Black and Latino died out, and now the feds masquerading as YouTubers are keeping the strife going. They're keeping it going. Why? Because they've seen this died out? No, they got to keep it going. Keep the division, keep the distraction, so you don't worry about what's really important and what's going on in this country. Because let me tell you something, this country is falling. This country is falling, just like the Roman Empire. When you bring in degeneracy and you promote it and you uplift degeneracy, and perversion as normalcy and something to be celebrated, and then you have these endless wars that people are supporting by voting either Democrat or Republican, these endless wars, the military-industrial complex, the Federal Reserve banking system. See, those are the things we should be talking about. Those are the things that we should be addressing and exposing. But the feds have their YouTube influencers to keep up the charade that there's somehow this big problem of Black and Latino beef. And that beef is among a small segment of the population because most Californians don't give a crap about it. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, exactly, Texas made. And shout out to Texas because that's where my grandfather's originally from Shafter, Texas, which is a ghost town now, Marfa County. Yeah, exactly. Texas is a whole different animal. Texas is a whole different animal. It is a whole different animal. And so I said this since the mid 90s. Gang banging was starting to die out in the mid 90s. Why? Because so many different reasons. I remember back then in the mid 90s, the new generation that was raising up, they were more into partying. So you had the advent of the party crews. I was actually in a party crew in San Gabriel Valley, hooligans. You had the advent of the party crew. And so I even noticed then the new generation that was under me wasn't caring about the gangs as much, that lifestyle. And then you had the RICO statutes, you had gentrification. So many factors played a role in reducing the influence. And so I just want to say to anybody out of state, most Latinos in California don't care. They're just trying to get along in life. They do not care about that stuff because in my world that I live in, everybody's getting along. If they don't get along, it's just because of personality conflicts. You know what I'm saying? That's why they don't get along, not because of racial stuff. When, in fact, if you're an American, you're likely mixed with a bunch of stuff. We are known as a mutt people in America. So, you know what I'm saying? So it's just, like I said, it's always good to be proud of your culture and your ethnicity, to know your roots and your heritage, but don't let that extend over to hating other people, you know? And I think that's what I think people have a problem balancing it out. Like it's okay to be proud of your culture, your heritage, and it's okay and it's okay to be cool with other people. You don't have to downgrade their heritage and their culture because every culture has good stuff and stuff that maybe not so great. Yeah, exactly. Texas made exactly, and that's the thing. We have a lot of similarities with Texas because we're kind of from the same Southwest region, especially West Texas. It's that Southwest region, kind of the same environment. So there's a lot of similarities, and just like there's a lot of Chicanos in Texas, a lot of Chicanos in Cali. But yeah, beware of these YouTubers that continue to push that beef like it's something big. It's not. It's in a very small segment of the population, guys. You know, and why was it at one time such a big thing? The Black Latino strife in the 80s and 90s, and maybe even into the 2000s. Why was it such a big thing at one time? Well, it was deep rooted from the gang culture. Okay, because like growing up in the San Gabriel Valley, you had well established Latino gangs, and then like in the early 80s, you had black gangs starting to plant their flag. And so that's where I can speak for San Gabriel Valley. In San Gabriel Valley, that strife was over because the Latino gangs were well established. They didn't grow up like in Watts, Compton, LA, Long Beach. A lot of the black and Latino gangs grew up side by side, so they actually got along. But in San Gabriel Valley, it was mostly Latino gangs that had their flag planted for decades. And when the black gangs came, that's where the strife happened. So it wasn't just about race. It was about gang stuff, territory, you know. And even in like like the neighborhoods that have been known for having the racial stuff, like even in San Gabriel Valley and all that, you go now, it's not like that anymore. For the most part, it's not like that. It's not like that. So that's the thing. Don't believe the hype, guys. The people that are continuing to push this black versus Latino thing, I think there are a few people that are probably sincere, but then there's people that are pushing it as an agenda. And I got to question if they're feds or not. There are a lot of feds on YouTube. Make no mistake about it. And their express purpose is to cause division and strife. Why? Because they don't want you to focus on the things that are important, the things that are going to affect your children, your grandchildren, and generations to come. You know what I'm saying? And that's just the real. And I think these strife stirs are on both sides of the equation. They're on both sides. So, like I said, there was a Latino guy from the East Coast that made a video. There's about to be a war. Is there about to be a war in Cali? I told him, I go, hey man, be careful because that's false. You're already decades late. That thing's over. Oh yeah, I've seen King Tone. And it's funny. I was when I was in New York. Um, I was never in prison. I've only been locked up like 4 times, and it was all like the most each time was 3 days. And that was ironically, I didn't get locked up when I lived in California. I got locked up when I lived in Miami one time, where I was facing a serious charge. And then they dropped it, and then because they had no evidence, it was a dumb charge. It's strong arm robbery. And then 3 times in New York, and it's funny you mentioned Bonnie and Clyde because my ex-wife and me were like a Bonnie and Clyde. We were doing stuff together back then. And in New York, I lived in Covenant House because I was homeless for a little bit because me and my wife broke up and I lived on the streets. I went to Covenant House and I actually knew some Latin kings. I used to hang out with them. They were really cool guys. I had no interest in joining them, but one of them asked me, "Hey man, you interested in being a king? I guess there's something called a Latin King Bible and they have their beads." And I'm like, "Nah, I didn't. I got away from that in California. I don't want to. I'm here in New York to kind of just do my thing." So I met some of them. They were real cool. The kings that I knew in New York City were really cool. Um, but that's the thing. And then when I was in New York, seeing Latinos and blacks for the most part get along, that was cool. There was, I mean, they have their racial stuff too there. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like out here. But out here, it's died out a lot. You know, it's died out a lot. It's died out a lot. And with the Latinos out here, there's so much diversity. You can get a Latino who's a skateboarder, and he lives in Orange County, and his friends are mostly white. You can get a Latino that yeah, he just hangs out with like people that are immigrants from Mexico or Central America. You can get a Latino out here that hangs out with the cliques, and you get a Latino out here that hangs out with blacks. You get so much diversity. Oh man, thank you, Texas 13 Made. Yeah, me and my ex-wife, we were like Bonnie and Clyde, man. Because she was from Brooklyn, New York, and she had been in a gang when they had gangs in New York in the 70s. And man, I was the young guy. She was older than me, and I was the young buck, and she pretty much would send me on little missions, and I was stupid, and finally I had to break off from that relationship because she was now that she was a gangster, man. I'm telling you, man, she was a gangster. That was the craziest year and a half of my 2 years of my life right there. But yeah. So, anyways, guys, salute. I'm gonna go work out in the garage. God bless you guys, and remember, don't buy into the hype. Everything in Cali is all good in terms of the black and Latino thing. What's not good is the inflation, food prices, homelessness, drug epidemic, and cost of living. That's the real concern. So, salute and God bless you guys. Bye.